Hey, good morning. I'm John Mangus, Metro Toledo John. I'm here with the one, the only Leigh Brown from scenic North Carolina, and we're so glad to have you here. We're actually in Columbus, Ohio, at the Ohio Association of Realtors annual convention, and Leigh spoke yesterday for a minute, and really, something you said really resonated with me, and it's something I really believe, and I really try and share with my agents all the time, is we need to ask more questions. Would you take a minute and speak to our viewers about why you take that position and why you feel so adamantly about that?
So here's the thing. If you had been diagnosed with cancer and you walked into the doctor's office and he said, you know what, we're going to start your chemo today, we're going to put you in the radiation tube, we're going to do a bilateral mastectomy today, you'd get up and run out of the room. However, as realtors, we get a phone call. I want to list my house, and we say what time and where, and don't put it on Facebook and don't FISBO before I get there because I can sell it, and we don't ask any questions. And what you have to remember is that to make this about the consumer, you have to know what's important to them. So the people who are going through a nasty divorce, and the people who are doing an estate sale, and the people who are upsizing or downsizing all have different needs, and they're all going to have a different presentation. So if you don't ask the question before you get there, you're giving some generic boilerplate presentation that anybody can give. So when you're doing what anybody else can do, you may or may not win. So with my business, we ask a lot of questions before we ever go near the house. And the first question we ask is, may I ask you a few questions? Because when you ask permission, they say yes, and great. Now you can get into all the nitty-gritty details and find out what's important to them.
You probably learn a lot about their personality as well, the more questions you ask. So
Yes.
the more you know about the personality, and maybe you've had this happen once or twice, but sometimes Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller have different hot buttons and different personalities, and asking some questions really takes you there early, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the first questions I ask before I get in the presentation, there's two important questions. So I asked a bunch of stuff in the uptake,
Right.
and I know where I'm going. So I walk in the door, or they come into my office, whichever way we've gone, and we sit down, and I say, do you want the dog and pony show, or do you want the numbers? And that way you can find out quickly if they're interested in your marketing, which, you know, call it what it is. Most of us have about the same marketing package. It's not that creative. But really they want the numbers, and so about 95% of my suspects want the numbers first. They don't need the dog and pony show. They know who I am. They know who RE/MAX is, because we are the most recognizable brand in the world. I don't have to explain that.
Right.
They want to know why Leigh Brown, what are you going to do for this house, and what's it going to sell for? They
Right.
want the unvarnished truth. So we ask that question first of all, and then you're going to see the husband and wife decide
The
which
dynamic
direction they're going to
starts,
go
yeah.
in. And then I ask, as you go into the numbers, because they're going to ask for the numbers, we ask them, are you a mild, medium, or a heavy geek? Now, when I grew up, geek was a negative term, and you didn't call somebody that, but now it's a really positive point,
Right.
and people love being called a geek. Well, if they tell me they're a mild geek, I know how to work the numbers. I'm going to hit the highlights before they glaze over. If they're medium, I'll hit certain points and kind of mix and match. But the heavy geek, and it's usually one in the couple, the one I'm just going to be like, I'm all geek, and I'm going to go over every point, and the other one's going to completely glaze over, but I'm going to give them permission to do that. I'm going to say, as I get into this, you're going to glaze over, because this one wants to hear the numbers. Well, then when I'm finishing up the numbers, I can say, come back in, come back to me,
Bring up, back
and
to the
they'll
light.
unglaze,
Yep.
but you got to give them permission to glaze, because
Right.
some people don't
Right.
want the charts and the stats. And it's that little simple stuff that lets them know you're paying attention, you're going to meet their needs, but you're also going to give them all the information that they need to help make a great decision. And that's what most realtors don't do. They're walking in saying, hey, the company's great, I'm #1, or they want to say, I have these websites. That's not got anything to do with what the consumer needs right now.
Yep. You know, one of the things that I hear coming out in Leigh's conversation today is, I bet you her clients say, Leigh gets us. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we want from Mr. and Mrs. Seller, who may be very, very different personality types?
That's
Leigh
how
gets
you
us.
win the listing. I mean, they give me the listing because I ask questions, and I always ask the question, why did you pick me? And y'all should ask that every single time, because if you don't ask it, you won't figure out what's making you different in the marketplace, because there's lots of real estate agents out there. So I ask them, why me? And they say, you asked us questions nobody else did, and you shot us straight. They don't want to be fluffed. They don't want to have smoke blown up their skirt. They want you to tell them how to get the house sold.
Thank you for being here. Leigh Brown, OAR Convention. See you next week. Thanks.